Welcome to I Have Questions with Michael Ruland. Have you ever asked a question? Have you ever been in a classroom, been curious, or ever wanted to teach and learn? Then you're in the right place, because I have questions. Hi, I'm Mike Ruland. I've been a business owner, a soldier, an educator, a husband, a father. I am full of ADHD and am experiencing the negative effects of long COVID. But I've spent the last 2 decades working in the public school system as a teacher, coach, mentor, and administrator. I'm very passionate about being curious, about being educated, and most importantly, about having questions. Join me on my journey as I share stories, talk to some fun and inspiring people, gain insights to being a better teacher, a better student, and maybe even a better human. I hope you're ready, because I have questions. Welcome. Welcome. How are you and your family doing today? I hope great. I'm hanging in there. How's that? Thanks for being here with me. I know you have countless things to do. I know you have very minimal amount of time in your day, so carving out a little bit of your time for me, it hits me right here. Appreciate it. Appreciate it so much. Thanks for being here. So today I'm going to talk about the infinite number of pitfalls we encounter in our daily lives and in education and in work when we're talking to people, and things we say, things we do, how we react. And I want to use those things to help teach us how to reflect and learn from them and shape our present. So today's guest is someone who now works in a college setting, helping high school age students progress through their education and their world. She's also a former student of mine who has used some high school trials and tribulations to be a welcoming lighthouse for high school students attending college programs. I can hardly wait to talk to her. I'm ready. Are you ready? I hope so. Let's get going, because I have questions. So I don't think I've tried to hide the fact that I was not a very good student in my early years. Heck, I wasn't even a very good worker in my younger years. I'm not sure I was a great husband or father either, but we survived all of that. Sometimes I'm not so sure I'm great at all that stuff still today. But hey, who's counting? Sarah, stop counting. All right. Anyway, I think as much as I've tried to remain positive as a teacher and an administrator, the number of times I look back and know that I made the wrong statement or gave the wrong advice is scarily uncountable. Is that a word, uncountable? I think it is. It is now. My biggest hope is that the entirety of who I am and who I've tried to be came through in those moments and overrode those statements or advice, and in the end actually helped that student or peer or employee. I don't know if it's just me or if it's anyone else, but being human can be brutally hard sometimes, probably all the time. But I think, uh, I don't even know that I know that how we react to those moments and how we internalize them and then externalize that information is really what does make us human and what sets us up for our future. And so I'm really excited to move forward with this idea and have a little chat with my former math students. So I think it's time to get to that point. So let's get going. All right, troops. So, my guest today, I'm excited for this. I always love talking to former students. My guest today is a former math student of mine that had to endure my classroom during her time in high school. Sorry, Keely. She graduated from high school, started her college journey at Central Washington in Ellensburg, and then transferred to Western Washington University in Bellingham. I love Bellingham. My wife and I always thought we wanted to move there. At Bellingham, she got her bachelor's degree in studio art, but being driven, because she's a Keeley, she then got a master's degree in education with an emphasis for those of us speaking English in humanities. She had various jobs within education, tutoring, and teaching. But now she works in higher education, currently working at Lake Washington Institute of Technology. There's a long school name, managing the Running Start program. I am so excited to talk with Keely Antoon. Oh my gosh, it has been a long time. How are you today, Keely?
Great. How are you?
Oh, I am really well. I love talking to any of you old people now that want to come back and talk to me. I'm like, yes, I didn't ruin them or completely ruin them anyway.
Yes. So happy to be here.
Awesome. All right. Are you ready?
Absolutely.
Good, because I have questions. So I remember working with Keely in high school and watching her be a hard worker, yet still has some struggles in school. But she was always driven. And as I'm sure you're going to notice throughout this, she was very quick with a smile. Keely was always able to turn lemons into lemonade. And she just continues to do that now and has figured out how to help others do the same. So, Keely, first, I introduced you right now as someone who's managing the Running Start program in Lake Washington. Can you describe this program for those that don't know and then share what you do for the school and the students using some of your background?
Yeah. So essentially, in the state of Washington, Running Start is a dual credit program. The best way that I describe it is dual, meaning two. So dual credit, students are earning high school and college credit while in the college setting. They can join Running Start in 11th or 12th grade, even as a rising junior. So, like that 10th grade summer that they're going to be a junior now. And so they come in, they can take college credits, they have the ability if they start full-time in 11th grade to get an associate's degree if they want to. That's one of the most popular options with these high school students, high achievers. But if they're, not so interested in it, or if they start a little bit later and they can't finish an associate's degree, they could start one. They could continue on at Lake Washington Tech, or they can come and gather some college credits to help benefit their future in college. So there's lots of different options. Running Start is also a really great program to, let students get to know themselves as well. And I feel like that's not really talked about a lot. So students have a lot of interests, which a lot of high school students tend to have a lot of interests. If they're interested in baking and they're also interested in computer science at the same time, they can come and try a little bit of both if they have the, ability and the credits that they're allowed to take. Um, and so what was the other part of your question?
That's all right. The other part then is how did you use your background and what do you do specifically for those students?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, for my background, I personally never did Running Start, and I always wish that I had. Looking back on it, I don't think that I was very ready for Running Start at the time when I was in high school, but I look at it as a way of helping students do what I couldn't. And, getting those students that are hard workers or even students that just are not wanting to be in the high school setting anymore. There's lots of different great options for college for Running Start students. And so I use my background in that sense of like, I want to give all of these students the opportunities that I never had or, couldn't utilize.
Yeah.
And every single student that I meet with, so most of my job is academic advising, and I have heard so many students, like, even when I was in college, like, having really bad academic advising help and, you know, not having, like, the best help in school, and so I try to be that change for them and give them all of the resources, really walk them through things and really take the time to explain things to them, just a lot like how you did for me, like, when I was in high school, and so those are some different ways that I use my background in order to help my
Yeah.
students.
Awesome. Well, I think, what you touched on, it makes a lot of sense to me. Uh, I remember, when I first started working at high school, I kept hearing, well, they're in high school now. They should know. I guarantee you heard that,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And
Yes.
I used to be like, yeah, but they're in high school.
Yeah.
They don't know. That's why they're here, right?
Mhm.
And so that has always driven me crazy in that we just assumed, well, you're in high school now, you're old enough, and so I appreciate the fact that you understand that and you lived it. I mean, that's part of it too. You lived it.
Yes.
So, Keely, today I've been touching on how some of my interactions and conversations with students really didn't go the way I wanted a lot of times. I also have touched on how I have no idea how a lot of them went because I just never saw what the student was thinking or how they perceived it, right? And
Mhm.
I'm sure you've experienced that as well. So, can you share some of your bumps in the road in your education trips? And quite frankly, if those or how those are really affecting how you perform your job and life?
So I originally went to school to be a high school teacher, believe it or not. And so when I started teaching, I actually started teaching during like students coming back to school during COVID.
Fun.
And so it was my first year teaching and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is going to be great." And that, I had worked so hard and I taught one school year and honestly it was one of the worst things that I have ever done. I worked in a school district that, just kind of saw me. I was very young, like I'm still pretty young, and they just saw me as like a young teacher that didn't know what they were doing, but also the high school students saw me as like fresh meat.
Yeah.
I like to think that I was a really great teacher, but it was a lot of like the behaviors in school, and I always tried to give the students the benefit of the doubt as anyone should and, not have the highest expectations of students, but that was honestly like a big blip in the road for me. It When I found higher ed, I started working at another college, as, like, an admissions advisor, and it was a great job, but it kind of led me into the higher ed space of, like, I knew that I wanted to do academic advising, and I hope to do teaching in the future, but that bump in the road kind of rearranged a lot of things for me, and then I ended up did I have my master's at that time? I think I ended up getting my master's later so I could, potentially be a professor in the future or, one of my goals is maybe like being a dean. So the blip became a good blip.
Yeah.
So that was kind of my bump in the road. It was unexpected, but it's led me to really great things.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Oh my gosh, to have your first year teaching as a brand new young teacher on the first year back from COVID. Yikes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's not on you there, kiddo. That's, whew, that was hard for 20-year veterans.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It was it was rough.
that's a tough go of it there, man. So when you were in high school,
Mhm.
right? And so now you're advising students with their academics. Um, you know, in high school, and it has changed over the years. And I think nowadays it's definitely getting better. But it's such a hard it's such a hard thing to do, advising students, right? Did you have any experience that good or bad or indifferent, or are you are you trying to do something similar to someone you've run across, or different to someone?
Honestly, another experience that I had while I was in high school was when I met with my college and career advisor. And I a lot of things were happening in my, high school life at the time and personal life, and I didn't have the best grades in high school. I wasn't the best student I could have been, but I did want to go to college. I knew that I had to go to college in order to make my life better. And I remember I was meeting with my college counselor, and she was like, "Look, these expectations of these colleges not so great." And I will never forget that. She was so into the fact that, like, I couldn't get into any of them. I got into, like, I think I was got into 3 out of the 4 colleges that I applied to, and I was like, "Well." Um, and so when I went to college, I was like, "Wow, this is great. I'm so proud of myself. I proved this lady wrong. I prove her wrong every single day." But I take that experience into my work every single day, and I always want to give those students the benefit of the doubt. I want to make sure, yes, that they have realistic expectations, but also I would never want to be like, "Hey, this isn't achievable at all." I would never want to, ruin anybody's dreams or, make somebody feel the way that I felt at that time. I felt so defeated. And I never want to make students feel like that. Realistic expectations, but like, we make other goals, we can work our way up into what they wanna do, and so I can help pave the path for them,
Yeah.
whereas, maybe that wasn't such a thing at that time for me. So, that's kind of where I do more work now so I can make a difference for, like, my younger self.
Yeah. I think about that a lot. I really do think about that a lot, that idea of the realistic expectations. And, as you know, I used to talk people's ears off. I never I never disliked talking. S I always worried about what I said to kids because, uh, sometimes I don't think the words and the intention matched, right? And, in your case, I don't know what your advisor was thinking. I have some ideas. I think we both know, but, who knows, right? And so, I think that leads me to the next part is, I think we all just have to be aware and know that as the receivers of information, we're gonna get bad information, information that doesn't set well with us, or information that we might not comprehend correctly, right? And so I guess as someone who has lived through that and someone who is now on the giving end of it, so the receiving and the giving end, what can people, I mean, and this isn't even about students, right? This is you could be a worker, a 45-year-old worker getting critiqued from your boss and you have to figure things out, right? What kind of advice or thought process would you tell people to have when they're receiving information from an advisor or a coworker or a boss that can help propel them like you did? I mean, your story to me is amazing. It's awesome, right? Knowing you through those 4 years and then not knowing this story about your interaction until now, and then knowing what you've done, right? you clearly had some internal something driving you. And, you know, what what can you tell people to do?
Honestly, I would say it's always important to have an open mind. I feel like if you don't, have an open mind to, what maybe an advisor is telling you or your boss, if you can't have an open mind and like view it as, a big picture thing, that's going to be a little bit difficult. And like at least for me, I had a lot of things driving me. I really struggled in high school, but when I went to college, everything changed for me. I felt like my life had changed. I had really great grades. I got a master's degree, and I never thought that I could do that. Um, and having an open mind, on the receiving end of, some sort of criticism or, honesty or, maybe even tough love, I think is really important. I would also say, like, on the other end, you know, there are some people like me that can, see all things in different pathways for students, and there are people that, don't see it like that, and they just see you as another, person in their office. It looks so different for everybody, but having an open mind is always a good thing.
Yeah. It is in everything we do, right? Yeah, awesome. So, I try to keep these things short so I don't, bore you and bore too many other people. So, this is the end of it. It's your turn, Keely. What have I missed? Do you have any questions, or do you just want to tell me I'm crazy? Your call.
Honestly, I guess my question for you is, where do you see this going for you? What's kind of your goal with I have questions?
Wow, you are an advisor. Look at that. What is my goal with I have questions? You know, uh, Originally the goal was to give me something to do while I'm homesick, right? Um, and I do have the gift of gab. I do like talking, but I think as I've, moved through this, I've, what am I now? A month and a half into actually sending them out. I've really kind of grown attached to it. And much like the way I think I talked, I just want for each episode to have one thing touch one person, right? I've always felt a little odd with education. I think, especially now with technology, but even back, 20 some years ago, I think everybody can learn what they need to learn, but they won't learn it if they're not driven or curious or um or have questions. And that's why I named it that. My hope is that by people listening to this, that every single week, one person gets just a little spark of curiosity and goes out and learns something new. That's really all it's about. I don't want to change the world. I don't I I yeah, I mean the behind the curtains thing here is this is way harder than it seems, people, as you're watching. It's I've been pretty out of it the last 4 or 5 days. I did too much last week. And to be frank, this morning's the first morning I've gotten up, unless I was headed to the doctor, in about a week or 4 or 5 days anyway, and didn't feel like literally passing out. These things are kind of hard to do. So eh, I'm doing them because I believe in the fact that people have to be curious. And if you're curious, you can learn anything you want after that. So I don't know. That was a ramble. I'm good at rambling nowadays. Um, so did that answer your question?
Yeah, it did. Thank you
All
for
right.
answering the question.
Of course. Well, thank you. Oh, wow. It's already there. We've already knocked out 20 some minutes, Keely. So, 30 years ago, you would have been one of my students, and we probably would have never, ever crossed paths again. But, thanks to the old internet and specifically LinkedIn, I've been able to track you from the side. So I hope that wasn't too creepy. And then bother you to help me out with this podcast. And for that, Keely, I thank you so much. You are a rock star, and I'm so glad we got to cross paths in that classroom of mine. That smile will never fade. It's the same smile I remember. So thank you.
Thank you.
So,
I'm so
oh,
happy we could do this.
yes. So we need people in our lives, everybody. We need advice in our lives. We need mentors, friends, teachers. We need all of them in our life. If you stop and think about the number of interactions we have each day that define us and can really define someone else, well, it's almost unfathomable to think about. Inevitably, wrong advice will be given, and wrong words will be used, and wrong decisions will be made. But much like Keeley, it is important to keep getting and giving advice, keep getting and researching information, and keep reflecting on our own words, because it isn't always about those things. It's really about what we do with those things. And Keely, you have shown that you can do anything you want with those things. I couldn't be happier for what you have done with those. And thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
All right. Time for a little long COVID, chronic illness update, whatever. How about a little behind the scenes day in the life, huh? I've talked a lot about how this is just a handsome facade right here. It's a little difficult for me to go out and see people and do things because the world, just my body does not react to the world like it should. And so I thought I'd catch you up a little bit. Right now, I'm probably I'm much better. I'm in front of the camera again. I basically have had a week where I wasn't so good. I overdid it. And so what I experienced is called post-exertional malaise. PEM. It's part of a chronic illness, not necessarily long COVID, but probably brought on by long COVID, then affecting some other systems. So um, basically, I had about 8 days where I overdid it. What happened was, on a Friday, I went to a doctor's appointment. It was a long doctor's appointment. It was in Seattle. Sarah took me. I drive. I can drive, but driving absolutely eats up my energy. I used to love driving. If you knew me, I drove all the time. I love driving. Anyway, I don't drive much at all anymore. But Sarah took me, so I went to this doctor's appointment in Seattle at the UW Medicine COVID clinic, neurologist appointment. Then that was on a Friday, and then on Sunday we went down to a neighbor's house for dinner. It was just an hour or two, and then on I don't remember. And then, oh, I know that next week on Tuesday, that evening, Brian and I went to a hockey game. We made two periods. Unfortunately, the Kraken were getting their ass handed to them, and so sucked. But it kind of made me feel better that we bailed it right at the end of the second period. That was a lot. So when I go out like that, I wear a hat, sunglasses, earplugs. I kind of look like the Unabomber. Sorry, Ted. And then on that following Friday, I went to my old middle school for about 2 hours, 2.5 hours. And, when I got home that day, I walked straight to the bedroom and basically didn't leave the horizontal position for about 5 days. Just, I'd sit up and I would get nauseous and dizzy and lightheaded and, just yeah, crazy stuff. Post-exertional malaise, it's a new one. I had never heard of it before any of this. I'd prefer not to hear of it again, and it's what happens when I don't time myself. So, if you're another one of my doctors from UW, you know who you are, might be listening. Yeah, I pretty much did everything we said I shouldn't do. So you guys know, I have a doctor I meet with every month, and we talk about how I should pace myself and how to handle things. And going into that week, I knew it was going to be a lot, and we had talked about things I could do to mitigate it. And yeah, I didn't do very good. Hmm. My fault. Oh, well. Minor details. I'm up, I'm talking, I feel better, my voice sounds better to me, which is I actually have learned to use as a sign. So, all right, enough of that. Enough of that. I am back in business at least for a couple hours today and moving on. Thanks for listening. Appreciate you guys very much. All right, troops, as always, touch base with me. I miss you. Email me. I have questions 2025 at gmail.com. Send me questions for new teachers. Send me ideas for new teachers. Send me ideas for this podcast. Just touch base. I'll even respond, maybe. How's that? All right. Have yourselves a good week. Stay out of trouble. Be kind. And most importantly, ask questions. All right. All right. Oh, hey, P.S. Yes. When Sarah and I first moved out to Washington now over 35 years ago, holy smoly, we settled in our first apartment in Everett, Washington, just a block or two away from the Boeing Everett factory. That building was built in 1967, so Boeing could produce the first ever 747, the largest by like 2.5 times airplane to have ever been built at the time. At that time, the Everett factory was the largest manufacturing building in the world, and it still is to this day. It's quite something to see, especially for an old country bumpkin from North Dakota, and so as a transplant to Seattle and living right next to Boeing, I have an interest in the 747 airplane. When it was first designed in 1965, Boeing gave the lead designer, his name was Scott Turner. Um, he was a junior designer. Boeing didn't think this was a great idea, but they had put a lot of money into it. So they gave him 28 months to deliver a completely new concept, an airplane 2.5 times larger than anything had ever been built before. And so they gave him 28 months. I mean, seriously, how? Anywho, when they were designing the 747, they actually designed it so it could be made easily to carry freight because, quite frankly, Boeing didn't think that this plane would be that lucrative for them as a passenger plane. They thought the competition at the time was going to win out, and that competition was this thing, supersonic thing called the Concorde. And hmm, good thing Boeing was ready for anything because the Concorde was not it. And as we all know, the 747 absolutely changed the way the world works. And I still to this day love going up to that plant and the little museum by it and just thinking about what those guys did in 28 months. They changed the world. It's amazing. Now, why don't we all go change the world? All right. Peace, love, R. This has been a production of SMEB LC Enterprises. Please give us a thumbs up, share us with others, and come back next week for another leg of our journey. Thank you for spending some of your valuable time and energy with us today. This is also a great time to reach out to someone in your life and just ask them, how are you doing? Don't wait until next week. And remember, it is always powerful to say, I have questions.